Read Into It with Robin, a virtual book club.
So before we jump into today's discussion, I want to give you a little bit of backstory. The book that we're going to be talking about is Group. And I read this book and I thought about doing a virtual book club specifically with Sara Schreiber. And I want to tell you a little bit about why. I had an idea to do a group. I wanted to do something with parenting, like a parenting course, and I incorporated IFS in it. And I had a whole curriculum planned out, everything I wanted to teach and things I'm excited for parents to know. And it was kind of just sitting in a document on my computer. And then I saw Sara advertising her course about how to get your group out there. And I thought, you know what? If I register for Sara's course, it's going to give me a little push. It's going to make me actually put my course out there. So thank you to Sara for giving me that, all the tools and everything that she teaches in her course, which is really wonderful. And I think my course is wonderful too. So what I'm offering now is a course for parents specifically who are looking to increase their knowledge of themselves as parents. And we're incorporating some IFS pieces in it, and it's going to be really something unique. It's a small group, so it's not overwhelming, and it's a really great supportive environment. So I'm really excited about that, and I can put the link to that below. But I just wanted to give a little bit of backstory to why I'm doing this book with Sara, and it kind of got me started and interested in the idea of groups. And I think that I'm just going to talk a little bit about groups before Sara comes on, so hopefully I won't be repetitive. She should be on any moment, and yeah, she's going to have a lot more to say about groups because she has much more experience with it. But the book was really interesting, and I think that one thing that I really want to put out there is that anything you read in a book is just that. It's a book. It's one person's experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And anybody who joins on the live, I'm going to be looking at the comments, and I would love to hear your take as well. Anything that, resonated with you, whether you read the book or if you have personal experience or anything like that. So hopefully Sara will join any minute. And let me just see if I need to invite her actually. Let's see. Okay. This book was very interesting to me. I actually joined a group since then, which I've shared a little bit about, and not an ongoing group really, but there was an opportunity for me to join a demo group, which I joined, and it was a very interesting experience. Gave me a little bit of a taste about what it's like to be a participant in a group, so I like that a lot. Hi, Sara, welcome.
Thank you.
I was just giving a little backstory to group and how I was motivated by you to launch my group because of the course that you put out there, and that's why I thought of you as the perfect person to discuss this book with, and also to be able to talk a little bit more about what groups are like in general. I was saying how when you read a book, it's one person's experience, right? And it doesn't mean that all group experiences are the same. And I've only dabbled in demo groups and obviously the parenting group. But you are the one that's coming here with a lot of experience. So I want to start off with, if you want to introduce yourself, if you want to give your, start us off with your hot take on this book.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Sara Schreiber. I barely ever do live, so I'm adjusting myself, trying to figure out the best way to show up here. And I loved this book. It's funny, I read it only a couple years, maybe 1 or 2 years ago. And I've been a group therapist since 2019. And I had a friend who's not a therapist. I had let her know that I'm a group therapist. She's like, "Oh, have you read this book, Group? I love it." I'm like, I actually haven't even heard of it. But she convinced me to read it, and I actually loved it. I definitely don't run groups the same way that Dr. Rosen runs groups, but I loved the book. I thought it was really user-friendly way for non-therapists to learn about group therapy.
Yeah, I think that one thing that stood out to me was how raw and real the author was able to get in her groups. They really got very deep. Is that in your experience, is that the norm? What do you think about the assignments that Dr. Rosen gave? Those are super unique.
Yeah, okay, so the two different questions. So first of all, group interpersonal process groups, which are the types of groups that he was running. you do get really raw and real in there. And I've experienced it myself. I have experienced it as a group therapist, in the groups that I run. And so definitely like part of the task is to be as honest and as forthcoming as you can be. Show up as you are, be open to feedback. I tell people, let yourself be affected by other people, let other people affect you. And so, definitely like that part of it was really on point with how I experience interpersonal process groups. In terms of the assignments, that's definitely unconventional. Not something that many I haven't heard of any other group therapists who do that. And usually there is there are rules in groups about keeping the relationships therapeutic and not social and not reaching out
Yeah.
outside of group. And this in his, it was like almost encouraged, or it was encouraged to be in touch. Group members of his were getting married, who were like going into different groups. It was a very different model than what I've
Yeah.
ever heard of or seen before.
Even when he told her to like call and report what she ate that day to one of her group members, um, yeah, there were a few different assignments that were like really personal and really like, reaching out to people. It's interesting
Yeah.
though, because I did this little demo group very recently, and I will say that after every time, it was much shorter. It wasn't like a 90-minute session, it was 40 minutes, it was different. But after all the times that we did it, I ended up feeling so like almost like shaken. Like it was a real experience, and I think it's very common for group members to also have individual sessions, like an individual therapist, just to like process what you just experienced. And I don't think she mentioned that at all in the book. She was only in groups.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, what's your take on that?
Yeah, she would call him and leave him voicemails, and then he would have the whole group listen to the voicemail. Like he really didn't have any one-on-one. Sometimes they would talk on the phone. And I
Yeah, but not
loved,
regularly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I loved how he called her Mamala. Like he was that like grandfather, fatherly kind of person for her. But I mean, so it's funny, in preparation for this live, I listened to a couple podcast episodes that she was interviewed on, and that Tate was interviewed on. And one of the ones she was saying how they asked about this, like the assignment of calling people or just being in touch and like how that is unconventional. And
Yeah.
she said that how she understood it, I guess from Dr. Rosen, was that it everyone in his groups are there because they are holding shame. So he specializes in addiction. So they all had various different types of addictions. And there's a lot of shame that comes with that. And his whole thing was to be able to talk about it as much as possible, kind of releases the shame
Yeah.
and normalizes the experience. And so his philosophy and his model is being in touch and being connected outside. Um, I don't know if it's rooted in evidence, but he's known to be an unconventional guy. So,
Yeah.
but it seems like it worked. It worked for her. It saved her life. So,
Yeah, and she was in groups for years too. And I was curious, like, how natural is that? She was in it, I think, for 5 years or more.
oh, she's still in it. I read a recent,
Oh,
she's been in it for like
really?
20 years now.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Okay.
Yeah. The same
Okay.
group.
I didn't follow up
That's,
on her. I was just like
yeah.
enthralled by the book.
Yeah, well, when she read the book, I think it said at the end that she was still in his group and she wrote the book maybe 20 years after
Okay.
the time that she wrote about. So, and she was still in his group and still with her same group members. That's pretty common. That's actually very common. That especially modern analytic or just, yeah, I mean, that style, you're just in group forever. But
Yeah.
some of my mentors and some of my group therapists themselves, like they've been in their own groups or they've led groups for 20, 30 plus years.
Yeah, and I can see why. As soon as you join a group and there's this container, maybe the first time you're not so sure, maybe the second time you're not so sure, but by the time your like third time meeting comes around, I think you start to like trust the people in your group more, and you start forming a bond and almost look forward to meeting them again. And I'm curious, if anyone listening to the live has that experience of being in a group and like wanting to go back to it. And I mean, I know I definitely felt that way. I did, again, a short, like 3 week thing, and then it ended, and I was like, oh, wow, like I would do this over and over again. Like, you start trusting the people that you're with. And I've had it even in peer supervision groups. Like, it just
Hmm.
happens. And also, right, I'm sure you know that in the groups that you run, and the parents
Yeah.
are like, it's almost, you want to keep going because all of a sudden you're bonded and there's something you're gaining from everyone for yourself, and it's just amazing. And I think that's probably partially like what kept them in the group. Like just
Yeah.
going back, even when she had some really tough experiences and she was like getting so annoyed at Dr. Rosen, and like she kept showing up because there's something magical about a group. And I want to know if anyone on the live has anything to add in, they can definitely put it in the comments. But Sarah, I'll give you the floor on that. Like, what's your take on the magic of groups, or
Yeah.
what you noticed in the book?
Absolutely. I mean, I could just speak in terms of the magic of group. I mean, there's this element of trust and safety and consistency. And no matter what happens in the session, the group will be there next week. And so I see over and over again how rupture and repair can be so meaningful because we'll have a rupture in a group one week and we won't get to process it, right? And then the next week we're back and everyone's back and we're able to process it and we're able to talk about, and I have this happen. I run a young adult group, and I have this happen a lot. Young adults, there's all sorts of stuff going on in their lives, and they can be angry and annoyed at each other and show it, as are in regular group, in older groups too. And then they get to process. And I just had this happen recently where, two group members, they were processing, like, can't believe that you're being so nice to me after what I said to you last week. And there's just this humanity that comes out where you see kind of like the ugly. You let other people see the ugly in you, and nothing bad happens. They don't leave. They don't, it's contained, and they can process it, and they can move forward together. And I think people have such few experiences like that in their personal lives or in their families of origin. And group can be such a reparative place to actually, have this experience where it happens differently than it has in your personal life.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about like relating that to the book. Like, what do you think Christie was like holding? Like, was it the shame, or the whole experience of like what happened in Hawaii? Like, that was a pretty big factor of the book. Also, her
Hmm.
relationships were a huge factor in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what stood out the most to you.
Huh. I think the dating, the relationships, and it's interesting. There is a big emphasis in the book on sharing everything about your life, every single detail. And that is not how I've been trained. My training is more in like you stay in the here and now, you talk about how you're feeling in this moment, about yourself, about the other group members. You're sort of like tapping into the projections that you're having in order to better understand your relationships rather than just talking about your relationships and getting feedback. But I also thinking about her and where she was at, she was really lonely. And I have a sense that the other group members were also really lonely. And I've seen this also in my groups that actually are a little more content versus process oriented. Um, that oftentimes those who are a lot lonelier do need to have more content. Like that's because this is their one time a week that they're socializing.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking how so many people nowadays are lonely. I think loneliness is like an epidemic. Like everyone's a little bit lonely,
Yeah,
and this is where again, like I was saying, for like the magic of group, like works its magic, where there's that connection, and then on top of that, it's such an authentic, raw, human connection. You don't have to put on a mask. You don't have to, you need to, not only should you not, but you should actually do the opposite. You should really be yourself.
right.
And
Hmm.
again, maybe this book was like a bit of an extreme version of that, of that, like oversharing every detail and the connections with the people outside of it was definitely unconventional. But that element of connection is, I think that really stood out to me. And I think that's something that reading the book, it's like, wow, people really need this and like long for it. Just
Yeah.
knowing that there's other people
Hmm.
in the same boat as you, right? Like, but even not in this book, they were not necessarily all having the same experiences at all. And still,
Right.
there's something about like the humanity of it that,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I see that again, like with my young adult group, they crave the space
yeah,
every week, and I really try hard not to cancel. And if I have something going on a Thursday night, I'll move it to a Tuesday night, and they're all available. Because this group really they need that connection and that consistency.
yeah.
Mm.
So that's something that stood out to me, the consistency, the connection for sure. and how it gave her so much, even though as you're reading through the book, it almost seems like, again, that question of why does she keep going back? Like, what is she getting out of this? But
Yeah.
it's these small shifts that really make a difference.
Yeah. I think she also loved to hate him. Like there was this element of she would get so mad at him and she would like yell at him and all this stuff. And she kept coming back because he let her, he was able to be that person that she can kind of take it all out on. And I don't think she had anyone like that before.
Yeah. And
Um,
he had such a healing reaction too, right? He would like put his hand on his
oh
heart
yeah,
and
I loved
he
that.
like took it in. Like he was like, thank you. Like if you can get mad at me, then it's like a real authentic relationship.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I love that as well, like when running groups, when the group members can focus their anger or their, negativity towards me. That's for me, I'm like, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like almost it's funny because like I go with like, oh, that's like textbook. Like that's what's supposed to happen. Like now we can move on to the next step where they could be angry at each other. And I've modeled that it's okay and that we can repair. And I've had like group members have been like, the only person excited about this interaction is Sarah. Like whenever there's some sort of
Yeah.
conflict
Well,
when it's
tell me more
directed at
about
me.
why do you get so excited? Like what about it excites
I think it's a big step for someone who maybe is very conflict averse to be able to say, Sarah, you're really annoying me right now.
you? Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, I do not like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Being able to be so direct with me, I feel like that, right? Like what Dr. Rosen would do. I feel like honored that they trust me with telling me that,
Yeah.
knowing that I can hear it, I can hold it. I'm not gonna do anything bad to them in hearing it, and I'll be back next week.
That's the consistency. That's also healing. Like that's exactly relationship healing, relational healing. I'm getting my words all twisted. It's relational healing because you are able to be in a relationship with somebody and like act out, so to say, and
Hmm.
there's still that safety,
Hmm.
and that is extremely healing.
Yeah. And the group therapist ends up being like the parent, so a lot of times it is kind of like a parental transference that's happening. And so I'm very aware of that too, and thinking about, well, how, who are you talking to right now? Like who am I to you when you're mad at me or when you're not, when you're refusing. I've had group members refuse to get mad at me. Like they can't even imagine it. And so, okay, so who am I when you're doing that? It's very interesting to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, it's really deep. And I'm remembering one part in the book where she had like a vivid dream about like being with a guy, and then she came into the group, and Dr. Rosen was like, "Your dream was about me," and she was like, "No, that was definitely not you." And that was very interesting to me. I was curious, like, how did he go from her dream to inferring that it was about him?
I don't remember the details of that, but I like of the dream and why he said that. But there is a whole thing with dreams with modern psychoanalysis and like with groups specifically around just any dream that you have, like bringing it to the group and being able to talk about it and better understand it. I've done like at AGPA, they have these like multi-day group sessions where you're in group for like like 7 hours straight for 2 days. Um, and they say, like, after the first one, they're like, pay attention to the dreams that you're having, talk about them in the group the next day. And so, people do. And I did this past time. Like, I talked about a group dream that I had, and it was like about like the group. I actually dreamed about the group. And it was really awkward to tell these people I didn't know about a dream I had about them. But it's just so interesting. And then we were able to like really process it and better understand how it meant, like what it meant. It was very interesting.
That is so interesting. So that actually mimics what I read in the book, which is like if you have a dream and it's soon after you start group, like it probably has to do with the group.
Hmm.
That was like super odd to me. Like really stood out. It almost
Yeah.
makes me afraid to like lead a group. Like, oh, please don't have dreams about me. That's uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the dreams that people talk about are like 90% of the time sexual. So
Yeah,
they're just
yeah,
like, yeah, if you or anyone watching goes to AGPA, like be prepared for that. It's very interesting. I think it's all about like the unconscious. There's so much
yeah,
there.
yeah. It's so fascinating how much people like keep buried, and also like Christie Tate, the author, like she would probably present as very accomplished. Like she was a
Hmm.
lawyer in this like top law firm, she looked like she had it all together. But like when you're reading the book, you're reading like the inner workings. Like you have insight into what she's actually experiencing.
Hmm. Right. That's why I felt like she was so, it's such a user-friendly read because first of all, it doesn't read like an autobiography. Like I just think it's so easy to read, but it's also so vulnerable and so relatable, and I think a lot of people who are high achievers, who are appear high functioning, could probably really relate to a lot of her experience about just the loneliness and the disordered, the disordered relationship to food, just all this stuff. It was very um, and it's a lesson. And actually this is a lesson that my group members often talk about having learned, is that you start thinking about other people in a different way, and you stop comparing yourself to everyone so much. And I ran this group one time. It was just a college like social anxiety group. And the cast of members, and it was a time limited group, and the cast of members were ranging from frat boys to cheerleaders to like not like mathletes, people, like all different types of people. And one of the things that people said, like as the group was coming to an end, was like, I would never have expected, one of them turned to like the frat boy and was like, I would never have expected to find you in a group like this, like your type, right? And it was just, I think, and some of the members in that group were my individual clients, and they told me individually, like it was so like the group itself was helpful, the therapy was helpful, but it was also like a side effect was learning and meeting people who were you would look at them at school and be like, that person is so cool. They've got it all together. No way that person has anxiety. Like I'm the weird one. I've got anxiety. And learning that everyone here is here because they all have social anxiety. It was so helpful for people to just have like that insight into what these like cool kids or super accomplished folks are, what they're really struggling with on the inside. And so I think Christie does that just through her book.
Yes, that's so true. And her group also was full of like physicians and lawyers and like very high achieving,
Hmm.
service accomplished people. And you could be and I think exactly what you're saying, you could be accomplished, you could be, presenting a certain facade to the world. And part of you probably is that. Now I'm going to like dip a little bit into like the IFS
Yeah.
reading. You have parts that truly are that. And then you also have other parts of you that maybe are insecure. You can be a high achieving person and have an insecurity. Like
Yeah.
that's so normal. And being in a group also like
Right.
further normalizes that. Exactly what you said. Like you
Yes.
start seeing the world differently. You realize like this affects everyone. Whatever you're experiencing, there's lots of other people who are probably experiencing something
Right.
very
And that's
similar.
why that's why I love starting groups, because as therapists we know that, right? Like we meet with 8 people individually, and they all are they're all we know what they're struggling with, right? But they don't know that there's like 8 other people who have the same problem or who are also struggling. And so I've actually put together groups from only from my caseload, where I've been like, hey, I've got like a couple other people who have a similar thing going on, like would you want to meet them? And we've done like mini groups here and there of just, you know, similar demographic of client. And they felt it was so helpful to just know that they're not the only person experiencing what it was they were going through. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even really a support group, but it was just, I mean, support groups are a whole other story, but it's definitely just so nice for because therapists know, like I was saying, but like for people who are not therapists to get more insight into the inner workings of other
Yeah.
human.
Right. That inner like peek into that other world.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that basically like sums up really what we were talking about, like the consistency and the connection and everything that comes along with the group. And this might not be the most conventional, the book group is not the most conventional description of every group. And like you have to know that there's other kinds out there and other leaders and most
Yeah.
so um, you know,
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, yeah. Can I share a claim to fame? It's not really a
Sure.
claim to fame. I know who Dr. Rosen is. And he attends the group therapy conference I go to every year, and he has a different name in real life, and he causes mischief.
I can imagine that based on the book. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that doesn't
but
surprise me.
I was like mind blown. So someone told me, they're like, see that guy that they're all like being, they're all upset about something he was doing. He's like, that's Dr. Rosen from group. I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
no
Okay.
way.
Now I want to come next year.
Yeah, I'll point him out too.
That's really funny. I could definitely imagine that because he likes to like prod a little bit.
Yeah, to stir the pot.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, overall, I really liked it. It gave me, more insight into group, more of a desire to try group. I had mentioned again before you got on, I was talking about the course that you offer,
Oh,
and,
thanks.
and how it led me to kind of, actually birth mine into the world. So, I credit you with that. Um, yeah, and I think that's it. I think we covered a lot of the book. I would love, if anybody wants to add anything, they can.
I can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So your group that you run is an IFS group, right? I'm
So IFS elements, yeah,
okay. I'm curious how the IFS, like how your group is a little bit different or very different from an interpersonal process group or the group that was described in the book.
yeah. It's more personal reflections because of the IFS. So my group is more personal reflections that I give space for everybody to go within, so to say. Like I ask people to bring, it's virtual. So I ask people to bring supplies, writing supplies, paper, and we do some exercises where people are putting things down and then there's space for sharing. So there's that personal insight. So it's different than like a typical group or process group.
Hmm.
But there is that supportive element and there's that growth element. So personal insight and then the supportive space to be able to share, obviously without pressure. But that's how I incorporate the IFS piece into the group.
Yeah, very cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And I've been really targeting like the group towards moms, but I've actually had some men reaching out and saying like, hey, can you do a dad's one? So we'll see if that's next.
Mm,
Yeah.
you should. Or would you ever do combined?
So it's kind of intimate in a way. Well, I guess all groups are really. So that's interesting. Yeah. People have to really be comfortable with it. And I think it's hard enough getting comfortable with the idea of individual therapy. And I don't know if, anyone here agrees, but I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like even getting somebody into individual therapy could be an effort. And I think there's more vulnerability in groups somehow. There's so many more people that you have to be vulnerable to.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I think also what I love about your group is how creative it is, and group in general, like there's so many different cool creative ideas. That and I love hearing about them, and I do. I have access to it through my course. Like people are always telling
Yeah.
me about different types of groups they're starting, and they're so cool and they're so creative. And I think with the book, that's one type of group, right? And like I run one type of group that's similar but different to that group. And you're running this other type. And in my
Yeah.
practice, we do a lot of teen groups that are like so creative and out of the box, and they are technically process groups, but with teens, it's a whole other skill set. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I mean, group could be so fun, and if you're a creative, like I think I have like an artistic side of me, but that comes out through group, I think, a lot of the time.
Oh, how so?
I think there's this quality, like I don't know, like I mean, with teens, there's a lot of creativity involved. There's different
Okay.
activities and
Did you have
games
to
and
like use?
projects.
Okay.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And with adults, actually, so I was considering going into either social work or filmmaking. So different, but I really was interested in both. And the filmmaking piece was, I really liked editing. And and I would think about like, I wanted to make, and I used to when I was in high school and college, I would make movies that were like inspirational. That was kind of the point. And the feeling I had when I would like watch those movies back was very much, I felt like people are able to watch this and gain something from it. And that's the same feeling I get when I'm running a group where people are able to connect and feel connected, feel like they're not alone, feel, elevated in some way. And
Yeah.
so it taps into something creative for me, even just putting it together. I'm like meeting people. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I think you're going to be such a good fit with this person. And it
Yeah.
just, it's a different skill set than
Yeah. I hear
individual.
that.
And it's so fun.
And I'm just looking, Chevy wrote a commentary, absolutely more vulnerability in joining a group, especially in the frum world.
Oh,
And I'm just
yeah.
connecting that to what you're saying also, like, yes, there's more vulnerability, but also in a way there could potentially be even more to gain. Like, because you're exposed to so many more people and you're learning from so many people and you're noticing things in them that maybe you carry also. So that's, yeah, it is hard. It's vulnerable and it's hard and you're nervous. And I mean, the
Yeah.
confidentiality piece, like, as much as a therapist, like, we have to keep the HIPAA, but technically the group participants aren't bound by HIPAA, even though you hope that everybody will, you know,
Right.
keep each other's privacy, even though, again, in this book, right, Dr. Rosen was not for that, which is, I think, unusual. I think typically we say whatever stays here,
Yeah,
let's like, keep in the space, you know?
exactly. Yeah. And I
So,
have my group members sign something about confidentiality. So it's definitely
yeah,
something I take really seriously.
yeah,
But I think what in the from it's interesting because a lot of my clientele are not from and that helps with filling groups. Like people don't really want to join a group where, especially teenagers, like they don't want a group where they're going to know everyone from high school and camp and this place and that place. Yeah, it's really
yeah.
hard. And in my adult groups, the majority of the members are not religion, not from Jews. But I always have like a couple,
Yeah.
and I screen them a little more closely to make sure that they don't know each other because like the world is a little
A
smaller.
small world, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And also the other thing I wanted to point out in the book, they were technically allowed to be friends outside of the group, and typically in groups people aren't. So for anyone who's like watching this afterwards, you know, if anyone's not in the live and they're watching it afterwards and they're wondering like, you know, what that would be like. Really, a group is you're mostly anonymous from one another, even if you are of the same religion or whatever. But typically, you are anonymous from one another. And I think it's actually really hard to not be friends with people who you're in group with because you feel like they're a friend, like you're so close. They know more about you than
Hmm.
you know your close family members sometimes, and you're still really
Yeah.
not their friend. So it's a really unique. Really, it's more like a learning, like we're learning from each other kind of relationship than an actual friendship, even though you feel like friends. So.
Yeah. But with friends, you're most likely less honest than you are with people in the group.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always find that to be interesting too. Like those really and but however, like from my training groups, we are allowed to be friends outside of the group and I have become very close friends with some of the people that I'm in training groups with and it those are such deeper friendships because we're already starting off with like we've been super honest with each other already, so like we may as well continue.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hear that. There's a lot of, again, going back to the vulnerability, like it's out there, so there's so much vulnerability that it just brings you closer somehow. But it
Hmm.
is a big leap. It's a big step to do that, like to put yourself into that scenario. It's
Yes.
not easy, but I think as we've gone through this, I hope that you know if anyone was thinking about it, hopefully it kind of pushes them to take the leap because it's worthwhile. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap up with that. So thanks for being on here and chatting about this book with me. I really thought you were the perfect person
Aw,
to go over this one with.
I'm so glad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna save it to my page, and I'm also eventually gonna be putting it on YouTube. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna have a little time with
Cool.
it. Yeah,
Nice.
if anyone
Thanks
doesn't have
for
Instagram
watching.
access, then yeah. All right.
Okay, cool.
Thanks
Have a good
everyone for
night.
being here. Good night.